Now you're hiding.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your girl Erica from the Classy Climb blog. Listen, you know what time it is. Drop that city and state in the chat. We have a show host, co-host with us. Listen, throwback. Todd Milley, I think maybe 5 years ago on this channel, several videos. You guys know our journey with investing in Detroit and stock market and you name it. And so I said, who better than to talk about Donald Trump, uh, what they call a gaff or a oopsie in Detroit than someone who's an investor in Detroit, but also lives in California. So lots of questions on California. And that's going to be some of our show today. So, hello, introduce yourself, Mr. Charles Oglesby.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Charles Oglesby, Todd Billy, number one options course in the world. We did a lot of really cool things, doing some really cool things. Sounds like somebody's fighting outside. Nolan, who are we voting for? But yeah, we do a lot of things. Also, a personal injury attorney. So, kind of have been pivoting into my own like professional career. So, looking to
Hmm.
start my own firm in the near future. Uh, should have that up and rolling by the middle of next year. So, looking forward to that, launching that, building that. If you're in California, we might have to have a conversation. I might be able to help you out.
Go ahead and hit them billboards up. You already know what time it is.
Yeah,
Get them beside of them trucks.
I work with a lot of clients who look like us, who don't get representation that looks like us, and I think
Hmm.
that matters for a few reasons. I think it matters because you have a little bit more care and understanding when the client and the attorney have a similar background,
Hmm.
but also those attorney fees aren't small, and so it's like you have one attorney who's taking the attorney fees and pouring them in Beverly Hills versus one attorney who's pouring them into South LA and building up that community or whatever that community looks like. So my passion always has been building up the entire community. Um,
For sure. And you've always been one that's was showing yourself in suits and ties and scootering around LA and sometimes showing the homeless guys and different stuff. And we've talked about like the homeless in LA. And again, you guys drop your city and state in the chat. Don't make me tell you. Thank you. Welcome, Crossroad Nation. You became a YouTube member. Also, welcome. Listen, I am not going to butcher that name, but thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you guys for coming in here, supporting this channel all these years. Um, Look, they're like Todd, Billy in the house. So
Todd Billy in the house.
part of why I found it important to bring him on to talk about Donald Trump and talk about issues because a lot of times people say, well, California folks, they don't care about any of this. It's not important to them. And I want to show where it is important to someone like you because we are people who've invested in Detroit, who've invested in the Midwest, who've looked to see the improvements and we might have the same take on what Donald Trump said about Detroit. We may not, who knows. But I also like applaud you because you've been kind of the first before it was popular saying, hey, marriage is good, get married, buy a house. Black men get married, buy a house. And I remember people like coming at your neck. And this is before the Kevin Samuels years. And now it's kind of the pendulum's turning and we're like, yeah, man, I got a wife and see, look how great we're doing. And look at us buying this house together. So I just want to give you your props on that, some of that before
And
we.
unfortunately, during the Biden years, we've been seeing that pendulum kind of shifting the other way. We're seeing a lot of people getting divorced, a lot of people with struggles. I wonder if you can look at the data just on divorces over the last 4 years.
Divorces are at all-time lows, but the people that are getting divorced are people in those 40s to 50s. So, and that's always been current. And I think that's because one, let's go there for a second. I think women's hormones, menopause, and also think, men performance issues, all that stuff, right? There's a lot of money in the marketplace selling to hormonal issues of people from 40 to 55. So I just think some of that adds to the drama. Right now, it doesn't help that there's been a few influencers I've seen they're on their third marriage and they be promoting. I'll be like, hey, wait a minute, baby, didn't you just have a different husband last year? What's going on? Um, so some of that doesn't help for sure, for sure. Shout out to Brandy in here, Atlanta in the building, Lancaster, California, Detroit, DMV, NYC. Welcome, welcome, Florence, South Carolina. So let me hop into it. You guys, I'm on my different laptop. Your girl be having issues, but let me show you a little bit of what's been happening. This right here is the Detroit Economic Club. Wait, is it gonna share my screen? Let me act right. Let me act right. My apologies. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is the Detroit Economic Club. Okay, now they've been around since 1934. Don't get it twisted. Networks and associations matter. Now, this is a 3,000 member group. Now, I bet you money. I tell y'all this all the time. I went to the Texas um, Home Builders Home Association, basically the people who build Texas, and it was 1,500 people in there, and they basically controlled what gets built in Texas. So I would not be shocked if this Detroit Economic Club is who's buying up stuff, who's invested in Michigan. Um, I've seen the governor in here speaking, so I know she had to come pay her dues to talk to these people. So I'm not at all. I just want to get y'all to get an understanding of who who Trump was talking to when he went to this event, right? Because first people are gonna be like, he's just meeting random people in Detroit. Nah, like this is who he was talking to. Okay, so Detroit Economic Club, y'all can look that up on your own time. They do a lot of stuff. They do a lot of meetings. Now here's his clip. I made sure to download it because YouTube be making you download it. Boom, get to it. And we're just going to show the part where he talks about Detroit real quick. All right, here we go. Y'all put a one in the comments if y'all can hear it. Make sure to let me know if y'all can hear it.
He's going to be a next president. I think Kamala, it's not going to be high on her list. I don't think anything that we're talking about today is high on her list. The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed, along with Newsom, California. And we're not going to let her do that to this country. We're not going to let it happen.
Stock markets continue to reach new all-time highs in the U.S.
That's our next, but sorry about that. So, people are like, oh, he's showing he's old. He can't even realize he's in a crowd full of Detroit people. And let's be really honest. I'm going to give y'all my take. Detroit people know Detroit messed up. Detroit people know Detroit is rough. Todd Billy. Now Detroit got delicious food. It's got, grit of the earth people, a lot of masonry skills, a lot of skilled people. But to act like he's confused because he's talking to Detroit Economic Club, no way. I truly believe he's like, do y'all want the rest of the country to look like Detroit? Come on now. But go ahead, Todd. Talk to me. I'm gonna call you Charles and Todd today, so it's your choice.
Oh, I think the very first thing that's important is we got to look at the full speech, not just the clips. A lot of people who have their opinions about an individual, they take their talking points from what other people said about that person. Mm-hmm. Oh, he said this and he said this and he believes this and this is what he's going to do. And I think that's a big mistake because they have their own bias. They have their own agenda. Mm-hmm. So you can't like form an opinion off of somebody based off of hearsay. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why hearsay is not admissible in court.
For sure.
The second thing I'll say is I think the most important thing is just to understand the context of everything that's being said. And I think a lot of people don't do that when they listen to Trump mm-hmm. quotes. They hear a clip on news, that person interprets the clip, that person doesn't watch the whole speech, everybody gets mad, everybody calls them whatever they want to call them. Mm-hmm. The other is Detroit's not in a good place. I know people who are liberals who won't even go with me to Detroit. Like they refuse to, like I've tried to convince them like, hey, going to Detroit. Nah, I ain't going there. But it's like, it's kind of interesting for us to all of a sudden.
Nolan muted you. Okay, there you go.
all of a sudden be offended at things that people already say. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I wasn't necessarily a fan because Detroit is on the up and up. Detroit is improving a lot of areas. Downtown is extremely built up. They're building up the surrounding areas, and that's kind of permeating throughout the other even more surrounding areas. There's also really good areas in Detroit, like Beverly Hills.
Oh, for sure.
There's some really nice areas.
Oh man, I went up to Potomac. Not Potomac. What's the name of that little town? It's Pontiac. It's like Pontiac. I went further up, and I mean, amazing. Where we went to our conference for real estate, and I got to speak on stage. I mean, I'm talking about $1 million homes for a while, and some really beautiful locations off the water. Now, some of y'all know I'm going to tell you, Anton Daniels. I went to Anton Daniels' studio. We did a bunch of filming clips, and he drove me to where he was doing new construction. And I mean, that area was like a completely different area, just 35 minutes outside of Detroit. Yeah. I'm talking about just lakes, boats, and not like over the top expensive, like really reasonable prices. And what happens is we see Detroit on the news and it gets this totally bad rep, but it's totally earned. Part of what, if you guys want to watch 2 hours of him talking about Detroit, you can do that. But the reason I use that clip is he's at the economic club because these are people who realize, okay, Detroit went bankrupt. We have all these extra union and government jobs here. We got to go to reverse. What we've been doing is not working. So let's bring in millions of dollars into the downtown, the development. If you guys ever go to the baseball game, basketball game, it's amazing, beautiful stadiums. Lots of investment has come to that part. And some of the other neighborhoods are stabilizing, but there is a pervasive culture because y'all know me, I call Detroit a zombie, but you can make money off zombies forever. Zombie stocks, zombie companies, zombie stuff. They'll continue to make money for you. They won't be these, rocket starship growth. Part of what you see the turn in Detroit is like investment came and pushed back. Their governor was like, hey, we're going to not kick anybody out their house for like a year and a half. And Cleveland did the exact opposite. And $10 billion went into Cleveland and parts of Ohio. And they say that is the $10 billion that Detroit lost. And I can tell you, as a person with a duplex in Cleveland, like between there and Cincinnati, you can tell there's billions of dollars being invested in those areas. But Todd, you had multiple properties in Detroit. What has been some of your issues with handymans or just in general, Detroit?
And it's been up and down. I would say in the beginning when we first got in there, we first got into Detroit like around 2017. Mm-hmm. It was a long time ago. Things have changed over the last 2 years. We used to get rehabs and a lot of work done for really affordable. Now they're seeing you coming. They see that California zip or that California area code, mm-hmm. and they're like, bruh, it's double now. Mm-hmm. And so you haven't really been able to get reliable work. Whereas in the beginning, they were happy to get the work. They're like, man, thank you for coming here and buying these properties and investing in these properties. I'm going to do the best work ever. And so like the market has changed. People got really greedy really fast. Right. They kind of skipped some steps, I would say. And so they went from like, we broke to, nah, this is my rate. And the rate was egregious. And so, presently we have some units that are rented out. We have some units that are sitting there just vacant because the city got very, very tough on rental properties and landlords, which I don't think is the best policy. Mm-hmm. That's why California is what it is. Yeah. It's just because it's not landlord friendly, and they became not landlord friendly. No. And so I would say that like now a lot of people are rolling out of Detroit. A lot of people that came there in the beginning are like, it was fun while it lasted. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of try something different. Tenants kind of became more difficult. Tenants kind of know how to game the system, play the system, especially with COVID. Mm-hmm. When they had all these, I had tenants who weren't paying rent, applied for the rent assistance, and then wanted the rent assistance to go to them, so they would get the payment as opposed to the landlord getting the payment. Detroit did that. And they could not understand why that was a problem. They're like, yeah, I'm going to just give you the money that I get, even though they're not going to give you the money and they haven't been giving you the money. Yeah, and we had 3 tenants do that. And we just were like, hey, we'll get you out of there. And then not only that same property where the tenant was living there, not paying, applying for rent assistance, then the city's like, oh yeah, we're foreclosing on this for $1,000 in back paid taxes, and you can't redeem this property. It's crazy. And so it's like you've gotten burned so many times to the point where it's like, I don't want to just bend over and take it. Pause. No Diddy. Like I'm gonna do something different. Yeah. On purpose. And so I think that like when Trump was making that statement, and I think the reason why you shared who the people are is because people are so worried about being offended that they don't want to hear the truth. And I think that's a lot of the problem with like the Kamala campaign. There's a lot of lying. There's a lot of like sugarcoating. Like you got your dad and you got your mom. Your mom's gonna be like, it's okay, baby. You're doing all right. It's great. And then you got your dad who's like, you fucking up, man. Get it together. This ain't gonna fly like that. You go out there, you're not gonna win like this. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. We're seeing somebody who's gonna tell you the truth and somebody who's gonna tell you it's okay. You're gonna be all right. Like, no, Detroit does have issues. And honestly, I think he might not even be wrong. Like, it's bad out there right now. Everything costs triple. Yeah. Inflation is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of living is crazy. They thought that raising interest rates would lower the cost of housing. It has not.
Yeah.
And now people are just like stuck in limbo. There's no progress. It's just existing. No limbo.
If you watch the 2 hours, people are like, "Oh, he was talking about the auto industry," but I mean Detroit as a city as a whole, it is not functional. If you pay attention to the light company, the auto companies, it's really not functional, you guys. Like, you literally have auto workers still striking, and people are like, "Yeah, they should totally strike." I don't know when I was talking to Charles about like the longshoremen, people were like, "Are these men striking?" And they just driving forklifts. Like, you're making 100K, 120K a year, 130K a year, 140K a year, and you're driving a forklift, brother. You're not gonna go nowhere in the free market and get that amount of money. And so I think when people say it's just talking about the audio energy, no, the city itself is fucked up. You guys, like, oh, excuse me, the city itself is bad because they never got a handle necessarily on the crime. Like, the murder crime is completely down, but the stealing packages, breaking into houses, I hear you.
My bad. I was trying to
No,
make
you're
sure
fine.
I was on the right mic.
When people when I would go routinely to Detroit all the time, I love the food, love the environment, of the people at least being friendly. Sometimes I would go in a neighborhood and see like a yard, grass grown over, door kicked in, and I'd be like, is anybody going to call the police? I'm like, oh no, we mind our business over there. And I'm like, the 2 neighbors beside the house are retirees. Just cut the grass for your safety, to deter crime for you. And so it's lost a lot of that. Look out for each other, look out for that area. And I think that's what, it's dangerous. Detroit, to me, could have went really, really in a positive by enforcing landlord friendly laws. But what happened is they were still under like, hey, you didn't pay your property tax, so we're going to take your house. And they actually are in the Supreme Court. There's a thing, Pacific Law Firm. I think I was going to find it and share it with you. But long story short, they fight that. Now Michigan's like one of the 3 states that's going to start changing that law where, hey, we're going to take your house. Now, $1,000 in property taxes, people like, that's unfair because that's why people won't buy houses there. Well, $1,000 in property tax and you paid off the house, that's $83 a month, right? That's not nothing crazy. You can write a check to that. But when you start doubling,
if the tenants are paying, and if you don't have a bunch of units.
Well, a lot of the property taxes in some of the areas I was in was $3,000. I was like, for what? They're like, well, you put a new roof on the house. I was like, the new roof only cost me $3,000. You're charging me the equivalent of a brand new roof on a house that's only 800 square feet.
It's great.
It's really out of whack. And what's crazy is the mentality of the people there is like, some of these guys are great masonry workers, painters. They can do all this stuff, but they rather go out and steal on a daily basis like it's their job. And I don't know if you saw, but I had a show. I was talking about how there's 90,000 packages stolen in New York City a day. And New York wasn't even number one. Number one was Philadelphia. And I was like, in Texas, we have a porch pirate law. You steal up to 50 packages, you're going to jail for 5 years. So people know, hey, I better go get a different hustle because stealing packages in Texas ain't it, right? Like, if they catch me on enough Ring cameras, I'm about to have a bad week. So
5 years.
Yeah. Well, they have when you talk about 3,000 in taxes on a property, that's $250 a month going to the city of Detroit for property tax. And then you're talking about people renting for anywhere from 1,000 to 1,800. And the 1,800 is really what's Section 8. And I tell people there are literally, I think it's called Detroit Uncut. Todd, Charles, they're literally on there complaining. Can you believe they're charging $1,100 for this whole house? That's crazy. Can you believe they're charging $1,700 for this house? And it'll be a completely remodeled from the ground up house. And I'm like, if you don't like it, you can go buy a house anywhere. Go pick something else.
But like, I think the thing that's interesting is I haven't really raised the rents on any of the units that we have occupied.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at the numbers and I just left them where they were. As long as they're paying, I'm happy. But like, that's one of the things that I don't think is taken in consideration when the city comes in and they're anti-landlord. Like, every landlord isn't the same kind of landlord. Like, every landlord from California isn't the same kind of landlord. Like,
right.
I've always been like a tenant first landlord. I want you to have this house. I want you to take care of this house. I want it to be in great condition for you. But it's got to be quid pro quo. It's got to be an equal exchange. You can't be destroying the property and calling me to fix what you destroyed. You can't be late on your rent.
Multiple dogs.
Right. And so I think that's why the conversation is important. to actually understand who's doing what and how they're doing it, as opposed to just enforcing these swift laws. And I think that the governor, or not the mayor of Detroit, I think he has good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
But to a certain extent, I think that there's some overreach. For example, it's like we have this property that we kept in decent condition. We just haven't fixed it up because it's just very expensive to fix up properties in Detroit right now. And so the land bank gets involved. They're like, yeah, we're going to take this house because you're not fixing it up. Like, how do you just have the right to just take this house because we're not fixing it up? That's crazy.
Yeah.
The lawn's mowed, it's boarded up. You can just take the house, but they're going to try to take the house, and they're very close to taking the house, which is absurd to me. Like, I don't know.
Well, okay, so I don't know if you guys know who I'm talking about, but it's a blonde woman. She's famous for going into really old houses and bringing them back to life on HGTV. She's a little short thing, little firecracker. She's a beautiful girl. She's from Detroit. She literally was fixing houses in Detroit, $100,000. I'm talking about historical houses, putting $100K, $120K in it. And literally they were going to take her house, the land bank. She said, you're not going to take a house I just put $120,000 into because of some inspector, some piece of paperwork. And she literally had to go to the media and be like, you guys, like, I've done more for Detroit. I've like revenerated like 150 homes in Detroit on TV. I like brought the traffic to Detroit, and you're doing this to me. And people were like, well, she has to follow the rules like everybody else. She has to do paperwork. And I'm like, a woman who's brought a whole HGTV channel to your city, who's brought millions of dollars in repair to your city, it's like Detroit has 5 fingers and keeps trying to cut off one of them. Yeah. It's like, do you want your fingers or not?
Since we're shitting on Detroit, I had an experience recently where we bought a property at auction.
Uh-huh.
A year later, I come back, the property, no, not even a year later. I come back, I get a letter from the city. They're like, oh yeah, we're knocking this property down. There's nothing you can do about it. So I'm like, that's crazy. They knocked the property down that we paid money for. Then 2 years later, they sue me and they want to get paid for the demo. So I bought the property. Mm-hmm. The group bought the property from the city auction. The city knocks the property down and then sues me for the demo expense.
It's insane. Like I bought it from you guys.
And it's not small money. They want $40,000 for the demo.
Oh, they're just being greedy now. Because that demo, they might, depending on the size of the building, they paid that guy $10K, if that.
We paid $20,000 for the property. They knocked it down in less than a year. Apparently, they were sending notices to the prior owner. If you're sending notices to the prior owner, it should not have been on the city auction. If it wasn't a city auction, there should have been a disclaimer stating that it's just, Detroit is a mess, man. It's a mess.
I called for 3 years in a row to try to get the address changed on where the mail was going. Finally, I sent a bunch of emails, and the girl was like, don't call on the phone, send emails because emails is legal. And I said, that's interesting. So I just kept sending emails to everybody on the whole department, the whole staff. I'm talking about 12 people on the email. Hey, I've requested multiple years to get my information updated on you guys' system. You guys are asking for property taxes and back property taxes. You want the taxes done. This is going on 3 years now. It should be updated. Once I send that email 3 times, every barrier it could in the system updated. And then they started sending me a bunch of blight tickets. Before it was nothing. Now it's like, oh, we found your address here. Here's your right address. Here's blight tickets. Here's this tickets. Here's late taxes. I'm like, wait a minute. For 3 years, you weren't bothering me. But now we found somebody that really cares about their stuff. And there's even
money out of them.
Yeah. There's even an attorney that he specializes in people filing bankruptcy so they keep their houses. I was talking to him on the phone. I was like, hey, are you the real estate lawyer? Everybody told me. He was like, well, how many properties you got? I was like, I got a couple. I'm a real estate investor out of Texas. He was like, girl, let them things go. Detroit is bent on this. And I just was like, what? I mean, and I had tenants who were like, I'm not leaving till the sheriff comes. I got a new property manager and she's like, well, let's just give him $1,000. I said, let me tell you something. Somebody who has been on not leaving till the sheriff comes is not going to take $1,000 to leave. They won't take it. And for sure, she tried to run that game on me. And I was like, everybody in Detroit's running game? Is this like the game? We just keep running game on people.
Honestly, that's one thing that I found about Detroit. It's not a lot of above board business. Everybody's trying to run some kind of a play, some kind of a game. And it's frustrating because you always have to look over your shoulder. You're just like, who's lying? Who's telling the truth? What's this? What's that? It's you can't really do business like that, in my opinion. Reliable business, and so I don't know, man.
And people are saying that we recover from Kwame Kilpatrick and these people, but I don't even blame Kwame Kilpatrick. This is a city. This is a 50+ year city type of scam that's been running.
Kwame been gone.
You know what I'm saying? And to me, another thing is if you look at the longshoreman boss, union boss, oh boy, sitting there in Michigan with a yacht and a big old $1 million house and making almost $1 million a year in income. And to me, he was the epitome of what I see in Detroit. I'm gonna come talk tough to you, 1994 style, and be like, yeah, this is the best city ever. And it's like, I'm not saying this city doesn't have potential because there's been billions of dollars dumped into it. And it has some energy of the grit and grind of Americans, like, hey, America against everybody. We'll still keep fighting. But there is a mentality. I don't know if you guys have ever read Outliers or Malcolm Gladwell. It's like the broken glass theory, right? They go in a neighborhood and there's tons of broken glasses, or there's broken, let's just say it, broken behavior. Your kids are growing up in that broken behavior. And people don't realize that's a big impact. Right? We love to blame the politician, but he's within a system of people doing that. Do you see how many buildings they have downtown that are literally just 600+ government employees and multiple people doing the same thing? It's crazy.
I mean, I see somebody who said that they never got past the auto industry leaving. And I think that they did have an advantage because the auto industry was there. But I mean, that was like what, 2008, 2009, the auto industry went bankrupt. They had a big boom because of that there. And I think that was kind of what incited what we see now was the initial recession, the Great Recession, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
And so like they haven't fully recovered, but I do think that they are recovering. So I might not be able to be a part of it completely, but I've seen a lot of growth in the downtown area. It's nice, it's pleasant, it's comfortable. They're right next to this huge river. They have great food, they have great restaurants, great nightlife, great universities. There's a house that I have that's about a mile from downtown Detroit off of, I'm not going to tell you the street, but
yeah, don't do that.
But that neighborhood has been built up. I mean, that house is worth more than all the other homes combined, for good reason. It's larger, but it's also in a really good area. It's right across from that one wealthy area. I always forget what it's called, but there's opportunity in Detroit, and I feel like sometimes the things that Trump says are for shock value.
Yeah.
So like he'll say something to get people talking, but
and he goes off the hip.
In that same speech, he said a lot of really good things about Detroit. He's like, we're going to bring the auto industry back. We're going to bring these jobs back. We're going to make you guys thrive. We're putting in a huge initiative into these specific areas because in a lot of ways, those are the only areas that are really struggling is that Rust Belt area, the Ohio, the Cleveland, the Detroit, the Michigan, Flint, that kind of stuff.
Parts of edge of Chicago.
I think that when people are looking to paint you in a negative light, they're going to jump on whatever they can to paint you in that light. And they're going to skip over the guy speaks for 2 hours. People only saw 30 seconds of that speech.
Right.
And they've made an entire opinion off of that whole speech, which goes back to what I was saying. If we want to be an intelligent community that makes decisions that are thoughtful, you got to watch both sides. I watch both sides. I lean one way, but I've watched interviews and podcasts from both people. And I can't say that other people who were challenging my views have done that.
Right.
I think the most I've ever seen somebody else talk was a debate. And even those have been biased because you go on ABC and they're fact checking one side. You go on whatever other news network and they're fact checking one side. And so it's like, I want the African-American community to win, period. That's my only goal. So however we get there, but I don't feel like we're winning right now.
Well, I was going to say, and people argue with me this, but this was in the White House press release. You can see it in the old documents. 2019, African-American and Latino Americans, African-Americans were up 13% in wealth. Latinos were up 19% in wealth and home ownership, buying properties and business. And yes, this was 2019. I know people were like, but that was before the COVID. And what happened during COVID was 41% of Black businesses closed and did not reopen. And a lot of this was due to paperwork. And so part of why I brought on Tommy Lee was saying, 41% of Black businesses closing, they didn't reopen. And it's really due to paperwork. A lot of people, 60% of African American Latino businesses did not have their paperwork in an organized way to even take part of the COVID, right? So we hear all these like, oh, Black people were scamming the COVID. I'm like, the legit business owners weren't able to participate. And then one of the loans, you needed to have a 680 credit score. And when they realized the average business owner, white, Black, Asian, whoever, had a 611, they had to drop down the requirements. They were like, wait a minute, the average business owner in America doesn't have a 680? No. So millions of Asian Americans were the first really to raid with the Asian American business community, were the first to like protest, like, hey, a lot of our people pay stuff in cash. We have 611 credit scores on average. And I did a whole breakdown of this. I had the whole charts, the numbers of people who applied and the credit scores. But you have to realize the people who need the actual government funding, need funding for their business, aren't getting it because they're not being well educated. Even today, Obama came out, and this is it depends on who you read and what you watch. Kamala's behind 5% in like 5 states now. And that doesn't surprise me. I even find that polling to be off, because they're not polling all these frat boys at colleges. They're polling older Black people and older white people. So if older Black people or white people already got her at 5%, what do all these frat boys and literally, Team USA, they're out there running out the youth to go get people registered. What are their thoughts? So Obama comes out today and says, well, if you're a Black man, you should be voting for Kamala. And it's like Antonio Brown said, the most insulting thing in the world is to be a Black man in America and tell people you as a Black man should vote, because that's what being Black is in part. That's like not what our ancestors, fought for. You know what I mean? Like, that's just insulting on multiple levels. Let me quote it right, if I can do it right. Let me see if I pull it, guys. I had a screenshot of it. Oh man, I might have lost it. It's all right. It's all right. But if you look it up, Antonio Brown, great quote. He was like, just nothing's more insulting than that, because, as Black people, like, that's the whole point. Our parents fought civil rights, to be educated, to be able to vote, to be able to have our opinion, and to tell people, well, you got to vote for Kamala because. That's insulting. That's the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King was even fighting for. Like,
it's kind of what Joe Biden said when he was running.
Yeah, you ain't Black if you don't vote for me. And I was like, people, y'all gonna slide with this?
He got a lot of backlash from that. Barack Obama did. I've seen a ton of TikToks, a ton of tweets.
It just looks bad.
People are not feeling that comment, and the reason why they're not feeling the comment is because they're not having a conversation with Black men. They're basically just saying, like, fall in line, like, because this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what we've been doing. But what are they saying? Sandy's doing the same thing over and over again, and not changing it, whatever that the end of the quote is. Mm-hmm. Doing the same thing Insanity. Over and over again and getting the same result. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I think one of the interesting things about this election, and the reason why they got Joe Biden out of the paint, we've never seen an election like this, where we can see one person's presidency and compare it against another person's presidency. It's very unique, where you can say you have 4 years with this guy and then 4 years with that guy. Where were you doing better at? And they're like, bruh, this is not going to work. We got to get Joe Biden out of the paint. And so they thought just sliding Kamala in would help us shift the narrative. And then they're saying, well, no, you're just as much connected to the administration as he was. Like,
you've been here.
You were there.
This whole thing.
And then, and
Nolan, go ahead.
And so I think that I lost my train of thought, but
go ahead. You're fine.
I lost. Oh, and so like, I think that firstly, I think that Obama conversation maybe should have been behind closed doors, and maybe he should have been talking to other people, and they could have had that conversation with other people, and not like put on a public platform where he's essentially chastising Black men and kind of belittling and telling them they have no ability to question anything. Mm-hmm. Like, folks have questions, they need answers. Folks have. It's kind of like when Joe Biden was running, and Ice Cube wanted to have that conversation with people about
and it made it worse.
Plan, and they didn't meet with them at all. They're like, nah, fam, we're not meeting with you. And then not only that, when Obama was president, what did he specifically do for the Black community? And what is he doing now, besides just being rich and speaking? Like, these are concerns people have. And so people are like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on.
Well, remember I didn't get to talk to you when it first came out. Remember he said black jobs and everybody tried to act like they didn't know what black jobs meant. And we literally could point out 41% of black people. I think it was close to 61%, 41 or 61, one of the two. You guys can remind me because I did a video on it, but it was like 51% of black people are in service jobs that pay less than 40 grand a year. Like through the whole United States, they're in service jobs that pay less than 41 grand a year. Then on top of that, you had like less than 5% were black doctors, and a high majority of that was Nigerians. Then you had less than 16% were nurses or CNAs. Then you had a small percent were lawyers, like a tiny percent were lawyers. If you know anything about lawyers, like you didn't used to have to pass a bar to become a lawyer. It wasn't until black people started coming in high numbers to South Carolina and Alabama schools that they were like, oh, well, we have to have a bar. We had more black lawyers when there was no bar than when they put the bar out, y'all. We've had
by
more
design.
black
I know
lawyers.
so many black men have not passed that bar exam with
and they just quit and they give up. They go do something else. And like the black people here in Texas that are lawyers, they have all Hispanic paralegals because that's the only way they can kind of like ride the wave is like all the Hispanic paralegal girls they have will go find people in the community. Hey, I work for this lawyer. She can help you. And she's black. She help us. Right. And so it's a lot of stuff by design and people don't want to address that part. And also too, here's the biggest thing. I think for African-American men, when Donald Trump said black jobs, he meant, I'm talking about forklift operator. He meant guys that are at construction guys that can come in and pick up jobs. And like, if you're in Atlanta, I don't know if you noticed this, Charles, but I would go past construction sites and see black men all over the place. I'm talking about black men with tattoo on their faces, black men with tattoos all over their arms. They out there working. I've seen black plumbers, black roofers, like you name it. I saw it in Atlanta. And when people say, oh, black jobs, what are black jobs? Like, come on, please. We know what black jobs are. There's been a lot of people who've had stable lives from black jobs. And so when Trump talks about this, he's speaking to those men, right? They tried to make, and even with the longshoremen, they tried to make with the longshoremen, oh, look at all these black people that are longshoremen. It's only 15% of black people are longshoremen. 53% are white men. Another 20% heavy is Latino. We're not even out there on the longshore position strong. So when I hear stuff like this, I'm like, I've been very heavy on either you're a black man, if you got a black young man in your family, if he's computer savvy, he needs to be getting somewhere in tech, point blank, period. Fixing stuff, doing something. If he is hands-on, he wants to be hands-on, he needs a skill. He can't just be a handyman. He needs to go get one certification that can get him in the door to go anywhere, because then he can write his check for the next 20 years. So I had this guy that we for sure. Listen, when I'm in Detroit and I see all those food places, chicken places, and they're owned by Middle Eastern people, I'm like, what's going on, Detroit?
Gas stations, liquor stores,
everything. They own 72% of the gas stations. So that's been gone for y'all. Here's the other slide I want to show you. Here it is. Let me go ahead. Y'all, I ain't got my glasses on. That's why I'm like squinting hard. Here we go. All right, this is if you can see this, can you see this, Todd? Charles, make sure I can see it. Is it big enough? Can you see it?
Policies, not the least of which is QE, incessant QE, sort of siphoning, creating a stimulus for the incomes of the folks in the upper income of the distribution. We've had a series of policies in this economy that have really kind of put the middle to lower, quote unquote, class on its back, middle to low income household consumers on their back. And as a function of that, they're pissed off, for lack of a better word, David. They're upset, they're frustrated, and they're looking for solutions. This is why Donald Trump is a politician. This is why we've gotten a sequence of populist monetary and fiscal policy since 2008. And we are likely to continue to get a sequence of that populist fiscal policy going forward.
Sorry, what is a populist monetary policy?
Populist monetary policies is socialist monetary policy, the policy that won't allow big banks to fail. The policy that won't allow, hedge fund managers, my clients, to actually have bad years. That's the kind of policy that we see. It's really just all a function of what we see as kind of the main driver of this, which is, we have this socialist economy that's sort of masquerading as capitalism. But the reality is, when you have socialism, Democrats, they practice socialism for the poor. If you look at the government social benefits divided by household income, that's been up and to the right for the last couple of generations. If you look at the effective corporate tax rate in this country, that has been down into the right over the past couple of generations. So both parties are combining to support the incomes of their quote unquote constituents. But
okay, I'm gonna stop that there. I got another clip out of this video. I love this dude. This is Darius Dale. He's over 42 Marco. I keep telling y'all, if Diamond Dave ever wants to do a research company, I will definitely pay money for that because it's big money. The government contracts are crazy. But Charles, what are some of your thoughts on that? I'll wait for you to come back. I see you might be getting Nolan together. Because you're talking about populist socialism with the monetary policy. If we don't let banks fail, if we never have any more, I hate to say forced recessions, how do people get opportunity?
It hurts, but I think you're right. Because I think that a lot of people before COVID, they're like, man, it's a recession coming. It's a recession coming. You got to get ready for this recession. And COVID happened. And a lot of people were able to do really, really well capitalizing on that. I read this book a long time ago, and it looks at all the companies that are like the largest companies now. And it shows that like a large majority of them were started in a recession when people were gritty, they were hungry, they were fighting, they were being creative. And so it's kind of touching because if you have money, you don't want a recession. But if you don't have any money, you welcome the recession. And so I'm not really, I don't really have an opinion on that. I'm just kind of like either way, I just kind of take what comes. I will say that the last few years have not been that great for me in the stock market. Interest rates going up. I had a lot of large positions in companies that were just paying consistent dividends that got really punished by higher interest rates. And so like REITs and things like that. And so on one hand, it hurts to have that happen to you. But on another hand, like I did lose a lot of drive when everything was just so perfect. And so I've had to become hungry. I've had to become more gritty. I've had to become more creative in the different things that I'm looking at now. Like I'm looking at purchasing a law firm. I'm like, why start a law firm when I can just buy a law firm?
This is true.
And grow the law firm.
Run mad ads on it.
And so like those opportunities come in downtime. So it's kind of what we're in right now. So, I mean, for better or worse, I think you really have to just take what comes. It's like the Bible says, I know how to abase, I know how to abound, I know how to win when it's good times, I know how to win when it's bad times. I had to pivot. And like, I mean, you talk about the bar, like technically I never passed the bar, but what they did is they looked back at my past bar exam scores and they looked at how they've lowered the bar exam recently in California. And they're like, all right, we're going to essentially say that you passed the bar. You have to enter into this program where you get a certain amount of hours, you get evaluated, you perform all these essentially attorney level tasks, and you'll be fully licensed in however many months.
Right.
And so I wouldn't have done that if we didn't go through this economic climate. Like I had stocks that were paying for everything,
right?
Just consistent dividends. And then through these last few years, those got hammered. But what did I do? I pivoted.
Yeah.
And landed into another opportunity that's going to land into another opportunity. So I think we've essentially kind of been in a recession. People aren't really saying it's a recession, but
I keep saying it's happened. It's been since October 2023, but people,
Yeah.
and that's because I'm in a few groups where people are like, my credit lines got cut for no reason. My business is still doing great. And I'm like, the bank's not, Chase is not taking a chance, and neither is American Express.
Yeah. So, as far as forcing it, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because I feel like a lot of the Biden economic policy was aimed at what they called getting people back to work. Because a lot of people, it was the great resignation.
Right.
They're quitting the job. They're leaving the job. They're like, I'm just going to be fully independent. He was like, nah, you got to get back on the plantation, fam. We got to raise the prices. We got to make it more.
Everybody return to work. Return to the office.
And so I don't necessarily agree with forcing it.
I feel like Jerome Powell was forcing it. I feel like when Jerome Powell said, hey, we got too many people. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here. Jerome Powell's like, we got too many people not working really. And so it's like, boop, boop, here you go. Like they made
crazy,
sure.
Which is crazy because I think I was giving this some thought and I was like, That is what increases the wages. If you have to incentivize people to come back to work, you need to raise the wages. Whereas now we have like, this is what you get and take it or leave it kind of economy,
Right.
in certain industries. And so that doesn't favor the Black worker.
It doesn't. Well, it doesn't. I hate to say unskilled worker. Someone's still making $15 an hour right now. It doesn't feel like $15 an hour, right? When you're talking to people, like I remember people kind of clowning CNAs, and I was like, you do know during COVID we had traveling CNAs. We still have them now. There are people who are traveling CNAs wiping butt for $100K a year. That's how short we are of people feeling that backstop, right? I see you wanting to laugh, but it's the truth. And so you have not enough people being nudged into where they need to be going as an adult. Let's just go that way. I'm going to say it that way. And then I'm going to read this right here. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Preach, Erica. Business owners are not educated or prepared. I worked at the Georgia Department of Revenue. People call to set up tax accounts for their businesses. They're using their phones because they don't own computers. I mean, your phone is a computer, but I don't know anybody who's really serious as a business owner that doesn't have a computer. Like I had 6 or 7 laptops in my office for my staff. Half those laptops got legs. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, that's part of the cost of doing business. You know, hey, I'm gonna take it out your final check and all that stuff. But I don't know anybody who's really serious who does not have a laptop. I remember getting on the phone with people who had they would sell things at the flea market. And Charles, they were making $80K to $100 a year. And they were like, Erica, all I got is a PayPal account. I said, if you don't go get you a real bank account today, quit playing. PayPal will lock your money up and you'll be out of business. This is the capital you use to run your business. And a lot of people just aren't properly placed to understand the capital is what you work with. The assets is what you work with. I mean, I hate to go keep going. I know I beat y'all over the head about assets, but literally I had properties that I could, okay, we got that, or lost that, or we had trucks that we lost. I still had trucks that were sitting in the grass. And I was like, hey, put those back out to work. You know what I mean? Once things calm down, put them back out to work. They need to be putting money in my pocket, right? And many people they're not educating themselves in this time period. So that's why I salute you. Like when I saw you start going back to work, I'm like, I already know what time it is. Let me show you this other clip.
Well, the good thing is I told Dre, I was like, I didn't go back to a job, I went back to a profession. And that
you did. That's the difference.
Even more wealth.
Well, you know, there was but that's the thing. A lawyer, you can do that till you're 80. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be a lawyer forever. I tell people, I took a tech position to try to see what that was about in Austin. Man, it was super easy. Like they sent a laptop to my house, they did all this stuff. And I was like, this is crazy easy. You know, some of y'all are just being dramatic. So it's learn things. So here's the second part. This is the 6 pillars of who's spending money in the economy. Because so many people are saying, who's spending all this money in the economy? So here you go. It should be this part.
Very bottom and part of the K. Spent half of my life on the very bottom of the K, and now I guess I'm a part of the top part of the K now. Lord willing. But in our opinion, yes. So the answer to your question, David, is yes. So if you look at the share of income, consumer spending by income cohort here in America, what we see is that the upper third of households by income account for 51% of consumer spending, which compares to only 15% for the lower third. So, one of the things that we've been, sort of pounding the table on for the past couple of years that has become consensus, but it wasn't consensus when we authored the theme back in September of 2022, was our resilient U.S. economy theme. And part of the one of the core tenets of that theme was what you and I are discussing right now, which is the environment for rich people in this country is actually quite favorable. We have policy that is, getting incrementally favorable. And as long as that's the case, and as long as, asset markets, back then we were kind of at the lows of markets, but if they started to recover, which we anticipated that they would, if they started to recover, then you're going to see a, continued expansion of the U.S. business cycle. And that's exactly what we observed. And that's exactly what we're likely to see, assuming that no policies are going to be no significant policies are going to be enacted that kind of disrupts that apple cart.
Okay. So did you hear that? If you need me to replay it, Charles, let me know. But as you can see, he's circled here for people to see 51% of the spending, right? Because a lot of people say, well, Erica, people aren't broke. We're not in a recession. Look at how many people are flying on planes and going places and doing stuff. And I'm like, that's credit card spending. And that's wealthy kids spending. That's TikToks of the wealthy. That's not your average guy or girl who's making sandwiches to go to work. right? That's not your guy or girl who's having a DoorDash because that's all they got. Like, do you see the increase of people living in their car videos? Like crazy van life and all that other stuff. So they call this the K-shaped recovery. And these are the 6 pillars of people who are really upholding the economy at this moment, right? You're out there in LA and you've seen, I mean, there's that one building downtown across from Shaq's place that Chinese company, I guess, abandoned, and now they've like graffitied it all the way up. What company wants to come behind that and have to try to clean all that up? That's millions of dollars. But share some of your thoughts on this.
I think it's all propaganda. I feel like you can use a chart and data to prove whatever you think.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is one thing that I do, even when I'm looking at stocks, is I go and I look at what's happening in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So don't look at even people on the internet. Look at your family. Like, how's your family doing?
Right.
How's your grandma doing? How's your dad doing? How are your aunts and uncles and your cousins doing? Are they prospering and thriving? I mean, it's great to, in theory, like America's such a big country and such a diverse country, and we have all these different areas and all these different people bringing in foreign money and doing different things with it. But like, I would argue that it ain't sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sweet. People still might be spending money because they have to spend money. Like, you literally, I don't know in America where you can get by and not spend anything. Like, it doesn't happen.
Right.
However, I mean, I go to these football games, I go to these basketball games, I go to these baseball games. I see people that are still kind of doing well. And one thing that I do admire about other cultures is they didn't stop doing business just because the politics weren't in their favor.
That's right.
And so I think that, like, what's interesting about entrepreneurship is you can't just look for favorable circumstances. Yeah, you might have ups and downs, but you still got to keep going through that down period because you're going to get that momentum for when it does do really well.
Right.
Now you're on top. And so I think that the data can sometimes be misleading.
For sure.
The reality of things is that, I mean, you also have to look at, I mean, if you do look at the data and you're looking at like credit card debt, credit card default, people carrying balances, like it's never been higher. Like, it's bad out there. And not only that, the interest rates on these credit cards are insane.
Mm-hmm.
So as they raise rates on credit cards. I'm seeing credit cards with like 35% interest. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
People will do it though. They'll do it.
It wasn't bad enough. Now we got 35%. And so, I mean, I think we have to retool. I think that another thing that you have to do is you have to prioritize what's important to your family. Other folks can spend money and go into credit card debt if they want to. Other people can pay these egregious prices if they want to. But as for me and my household, we're going to go lean for a little bit.
For sure.
We're going to stack for a little bit. I think you have to zig when other people are zagging. Like, if they're still participating in this nonsense, you need to lay low and stack for a little bit. If you have high credit card debt, you need to lay low and stack for a little bit. You need to start chunking out that credit card debt so you can get back in position. Don't just keep running up the balances, because the balances do not go away. And they only get more aggressive. So,
well, part I was going to ask you, and that I was going to bring up in our talk, since it's been a minute since you've been on channel, is you bought a home way outside of LA during the pandemic. And a lot of people are like, oh, I wouldn't be buying a home in California. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do that. And I go, a lot of these people that said they're just going to keep waiting for home prices to fall, good luck to you. So I can't, like, I'm quoting, you don't have to give us the exact number, but you were one of the people that got what, 200,000, 300,000 in equity off of being first in a new construction kind of area.
Yeah. So I think what I learned from my parents is, in California, it's this market where you have to kind of drive until you can afford something. And then what happens is they build up around that area. And so my parents were originally from San Diego. And they moved up into like the Temecula-Wildomar area, Lake Elsinore area. And when they bought their house, when my stepdad bought his house, I think he paid like $180 for it. They sold it for maybe $4-ish, approximately. I'm not sure. They bought another house at the height of the market. I think they paid like $7 for it. Didn't work out, so they had to pivot and get another house. They paid $350 for it. Now it's worth $7. But the real thing that I saw people in these prime cities who just could never buy anything. They just sat there renting forever. Yeah, I live in San Diego. Yeah, I live in LA, but I'm a renter. There's this one girl I used to work with, and she was like, yeah, but you live all the way out there. Turns out she lived in an apartment in Culver City. I was like, yeah, you live in Culver City, but you don't own shit.
Why be that far out? Why be that far out? Listen, I ran into a New Yorker the other day who been down here in Texas for 20 years. And she's like way south of Austin. I'm talking about 30 plus minutes. I said, girl, what you bought a house, new construction? She's like, oh no, I live in an apartment. I'm like, why would you come from New York 20 years ago, be downtown, keep moving further and further out when you, of course, of all people know, like everybody I've ever met that's a New Yorker owns multiple properties in Texas. So I was looking at her. I'm like, either you were bankrupt or something was going on with you, sis, because there's nobody I've met from New York that came to Texas and was like $80K house back 20 years ago or came here now. Even there's an area in Hutto where a lot of black people are, but they're all from Pittsburgh and Ohio. And you'll talk to them and be like, well, what made you just come to Hutto out of nowhere? They're like, the house was $250. Where am I get that? Where am I get a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house for this much? Dr. Boyce Watkins comes and does a.
So this guy said, Anthony Russell says his parents are 2 hours east of LA. And see, this is the thing. When we first moved to this area, we were like, everything's in LA, everything's in San Diego. That's not the case anymore. They've built up Temecula as though it is San Diego. They've built up Rancho Cucamonga, which is not far from where I am, as though it is San Diego. So at a point, you thought you were missing out on things. And now it's like, I have the same quality of life, but I own my thing. My mortgage is never changing. I live in the same house for 4 years. My mortgage is still the same number. It's never going up.
You have $300,000 equity.
I look at where we used to live before we moved here. It's like $1,000 more than our mortgage.
All right.
So I think that what a lot of people don't look at is they don't like when we're looking at the cost. And I was going to tweet this. The value in home ownership is in part the equity, but it's also the consistent mortgage that you're paying compared to the rent that you would be paying.
Yeah.
What is that difference in number? Like people don't look at living somewhere for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, paying nothing almost. Like my uncle, he bought his house in San Diego. His mortgage was $1,200 at the time. He was like, how am I going to pay $1,200?
$1,200. That's great.
He hustled. He paid off his mortgage early. He moved to Arizona. He kept his house in San Diego. The home in San Diego paid for the house in Arizona. And so I think that like, when people think about that, they're thinking, I got to live in the prime area. I got to be in the prime area because there's like a brand and a prestige that comes with being in a prime area.
It's like people in Atlanta. I live in Atlanta
like,
for what?
I don't really care about the prime area. I care about the net worth. I care about the wealth. I care about the security. And the community is just growing around us. All they're doing is building homes. All they're doing is building schools and shopping centers. So it's like especially if you have a child, by the time that child's in high school, they're set.
Right. He said he basically was saying that to give people an idea where that is at. Not throwing shade.
You know me, I always see everything is shade.
Trying to be like,
everything is shade.
He was saying I was looking at development deals in mini free 10 years ago. And so I don't know if you know that area. Do you know that area is at mini free?
Yeah, I know Menifee. Menifee is about 15, 20 minutes away from where my parents live.
Okay.
So
the biggest problem about people buying a personal property is the world realization. Yeah, I mean, all the rentals I had, the people that lived in the rentals in Detroit were like, "Can I just buy this from you? Can I pay you payments and buy this house from you?" And I'd be like, "Well, can you go by the bank?" "Oh, no bank will give me money for this." I'm like, "You don't have a credit card? You can put $10K down, and then we can start the payments." "Oh, no, I don't have a credit card." I'm like, "Baby, then you can't own a house because anything go wrong, you're just gonna abandon the house." So, but that's how a lot of people make their hustle off uneducated people. They'll rent to own them to death. And right now in Atlanta, there's over I think 10,000 rent to home situations going on. So Charles, give us your Yahoo Don says, what is a good amount to save before starting a business? And when you get a chance to come on, you let us know. Somebody said in the comments, after paying a firm is huge. Oh, for sure. I've talked to y'all about the cruises. People do layaway on a cruise. $100. They be locked in for next year for a couple different cruises. I know a few older ladies, they locked in for one every other month. And I'd be like, you ain't even retired yet. What you doing? But that's just how that goes. That's a mindset for sure.
What was the question?
Yahoo Don. Yahoo. No disrespect here. I think this is a Chinese name and I'm not.
Shout out to Anthony Russell, man. No shade taken.
He said, what's a good amount to save before starting a business?
None.
Tell the mindset behind that. Tell me the mindset behind that. Because I know what you're trying to say, but go ahead.
I feel like the business does the saving for you. Mm-hmm. You need to get something to market ASAP, a minimum viable product. Get something to market ASAP. Whatever that product is, all the business is selling a product to the market. So what you have to do is you have to create a brand, which is free. All these things are free. Canva's free. They'll do all your graphic design for you. Mm-hmm. You have all these different Google platforms that are free to you, all these different AI platforms that are free to you. The most important thing, in my opinion, in a business is just getting started. So, and this is just my perspective. Sure. I mean, I think it's kind of a liberating perspective because I think a lot of people feel like they got to work a job, stack some bread, and then they can start a business. Like, no, you can start a business today. Mm-hmm. And a part of you building that business is going to be creating content around that business. So for a long time, I had a blog. I had a free WordPress website. I would write a blog every single day. A very good book that I recommend is Choose Yourself. He breaks down a lot of these things in terms of like how you choose yourself and just going about the whole blog process. Posting on social media, adding value into people, creating a link that you can share content and your products to. The most important thing is just the activity, taking action, and take an abundance of action. A lot of people think that money is going to replace certain things. When it all comes down to is just the amount of activity you're going to take. Are you going to be going live on Instagram? Are you going to be posting 10, 15 times a day? Mm-hmm. Are you going to be responding to all the DMs that you get? Are you going to be putting tips and tricks out there to attract people to your business? Mm-hmm. I feel like once you get started, then I think the most important thing is to start running ads for your business because it's going to expose you to a market that you would not have otherwise tapped into organically. But I don't necessarily believe that there's a number to save before starting your business. You are a business. Start the business today. Start the business now. Put your product out there. Start getting sales, but then reinvest that money back into your business in terms of ads or improving your product or improving your website or improving your logo and your design. A large part of the early phase of a business is just reinvesting your capital back into that business. But a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people want to like, oh, I made money. I got to take money out. Put it right back into the business.
They have that dollar mindset.
Yeah.
A lot of Indians are like, put it all in, put it right back in to the business. I was going to show you this book right here. I don't know if you've seen it before. $1 Million. Oh, the daggone crazy $1 Million Weekend. It's a really good. The guy is Noah Kagan. He's here in Austin, and I'm only bringing this up, you guys, because a lot of people are like, Erica, how much should I save all this money? And I'll get on the phone with a lot of y'all, and y'all have a $20K, $30K credit card, and y'all be like, oh, I gotta get some more credit cards to be able before I run this business. I'm telling you now, I bought $1,000 in inventory and put it on Amazon FBA to start my brand. And that brand now, after I reinvested, that's going to be a brand that's going to bring me anywhere from 20 to 50K a month. And I just have to keep buying inventory. And when people first said, oh, Erica, that's crazy. And I'm like, literally just investing in UGC videos, investing in TikTok folks and letting that trend rock. A lot of y'all could start a business this weekend. And you know how you start it? You literally pitch to everyone you know. Are you interested in this? You don't even have to say it's your name. You have to be, hey, I found this great digital cookbook. You know what I mean? Like I literally tell you on the Digital Liberty Warriors school group, you can start a cookbook this weekend on soups. And it's that time of year. And you just get sales off of just showing literally a photo of soup. Like, hey, I just did this soup out of my digital cookbook and put the link up there. You know what I mean? I literally keep telling y'all over and over in the Digital Liberty Warriors groups, like, here's 100 different product ideas. Kick it off. A lot of y'all know more people than you think. And a lot of people are watching you more than you think. This is why I bring Charles on, because I said his consistency had people pissy, but they were watching because they're like, man, he's consistently saying invest in the stock market, move money. Now you got a lot of white boys, a lot of white dudes saying move stock market money. You got Aristotle Investments out there buying up buildings in California, Atlanta. And people are like, how is a 28-year-old doing this? He was in tech in the military. He was cutting hair on the weekend at the barbershop. And then he was doing stocks. And so a lot of people are sitting, waiting for a perfect storm of opportunity. And by the time y'all wait for a perfect storm, it'll be 2 years and it'll be on to the next thing. You know, when people talk to me, Charles, like, I'm gonna start a course today. Well, where were you 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when you had the ideal? Do the ideal when it's do it. Take it now, because then you can be on to the next. Charles hit a big old run. I mean, somebody even said it in the comments. I'm gonna shout out to Todd. I bought his courses a few years back when he was going heavy, and the market path course is still viable. A lot of that stuff I still promote because it still makes money. If you are learning how to move your money in the markets, it's a valuable skill. It's a valuable skill. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that helped some of y'all. LG said, if I'm living as retired now, that day may never come. Yeah, I tell people that sometimes. But yeah, so I know you got time with the fam. I know you got it, and I got to finish my dinner. It's cooking over here. So leave us with anything or any thoughts or any questions that I didn't cover that you want to hit. Now's the time. Like, feel free. It's your time.
I just want to encourage people to make the best of whatever we get handed in this election. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my perspective. Is like, either way it goes, we still got to win. So, that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is get started today. Whatever you want to build, whatever you want to do, get started today, because you never know what it's going to pivot or turn into. I didn't start out pitching options as a course. I started out doing what everybody else was doing, which was I had a real estate course. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, real estate, this is how we do real estate. This is how you can do real estate, how we do real estate. And it did okay. It did enough. Mm-hmm. And then
you hit it out the park. Stop playing.
What I started to do is I started to create courses around everything that I knew. Mm-hmm. And one course that I created, which I kind of got forced into creating, like I launched the pre-order, mm-hmm. and I never launched the product. And somebody was like, man, where's this product? Where's this product at? So I got kind of pissed, went in there, recorded it, dropped it, and started getting some really, really good reviews out of it. Mm-hmm. But I started out everything Tide Capital by just doing like a stock market investment club, a podcast, mm-hmm. a blog. And so I didn't save up money to start that business. I didn't wait to start that business. When I started recording podcasts, it was literally just like calling people on speakerphone and recording the actual content. There was no fancy apps. There was no apps that pushed it out to all these different things. I literally like recorded the audio, uploaded it to like SoundCloud, and then took the RSS feed from SoundCloud, and I found a way to get it on the Apple Podcast. Like I was just piecing things together. And so I share that with you because a lot of people want that cookie cutter, that step-by-step, and not just like figuring it out as you go, learning as you go, creating as you go. I think that we still got to be entrepreneurship and business minded. There's a lot of things I want in life, and there's a lot of things I need to handle in life. Uh-huh. They cannot get handled off of a 9-to-5 job. It just can't. Like a lot of things that we do. We just got back from a vacation in St. Vincent at Sandals. Mm-hmm. That vacation probably cost like $15,000. No job is just over here like just making that happen. Maybe some.
Maybe. Yeah, and you listen, y'all was having a good time.
It might have cost more than 15.
Hey,
nevertheless,
treat yourself. Add it into the budget.
Start that business, build the business, collaborate with other people. Teamwork is the biggest life hack that we can ever have. Finding good people that you can work with and build with is going to make it accelerate even faster. And so I think that's very important, especially if you're looking for capital to start your business. Get a partner, not a capital partner. It doesn't have to be somebody giving you a check. Just have somebody to work alongside with you, hold you accountable, run just as hard as you're running alongside you. That'll help you grow your business. Nolan, any last words for the people? What do you got to say? Say, I'm amazing.
No.
And I'm smart.
No, I'm saying.
I'm a great reader. I'm great at math.
I'm going to say Donald Trump is amazing and he's the best.
He's the best.
We out.
All right. Thank you so much. People said thank you for your time. They said they got your course on there. Most people are in financial bondage right now. Yeah. Listen, thank you for your time, you guys. Thank you, Brandy. She's an accountant. She owns a big accounting firm in Atlanta. But listen, you guys, great stuff to you. Listen, you've always had an amazing Instagram page for years. You've stayed consistent. I loved your journey. I think a lot of people will enjoy your journey.
Hold on. Before we go, what's your thoughts on the Pop the Balloon and Find Love show?
Here you go with that. It's like a slave auction. It's embarrassing. It's like they out there like, hey, come on up here, brother. Look at you, brother. And then they popping balloons. I'm like, y'all, this is some minstrel show stuff. Y'all embarrassing us. And people like, what's so bad about it, Erica? It's like if you were at a nightclub or you were online dating. I'm like, no, because nobody's there really to date. They're there to like come up with quickie one-liners so they can be famous on the internet, right? It's real raggedy. Look, Brandy already said it's real raggedy, man.
But you don't think that
embarrassing?
Like, I feel like to a certain extent, it is indicative of the dating market out there, where you have all these people who say they don't have any options, but then they constantly reject people over superficial and shallow reasons.
Silly stuff. Well, and part of it too is there are people out there who have what people want. It's not in the package they want. I remember this guy, he was dating a girl. He said, there's a football player, just got engaged. Jalen Hurts, beautiful black lady. She got her MBA. She going to school. They were going to school at the same time, off and on together. And people like, she ain't that good looking. She look old. And it's a beautiful black girl. I'm talking about skinny, big boob, like real pretty girl. School, she looks like somebody's wife, like wife material. And people are like, and another football player came out and said, y'all so used to marrying Kim Kardashian lookalikes. Y'all don't know what a real wife looks like when it's walking beside you. He's like his Jalen Hurts manager is a black woman, right? And they're like, y'all don't think she look good? Y'all don't like, they look similar. Like he is picking good quality women. And so I think a lot of people don't know what it looks like. I myself had to adjust my daggone type. You know what I mean? And I got a relationship from somebody that was in a conference with me. You know what I'm saying? So their mindset was right. Their thought process was right. How they handled their business was right. And a lot of people get lost in that because it doesn't look like something they saw on TikTok or Instagram. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Like I remember one of the dudes off the Black Manosphere was saying his wife was white, but he realized once he married her, like, I just got mommy issues. He's like, she made me go to therapy. So imagine marrying somebody and they make you go to therapy. Like some people out here really need to get some therapy. Really, is what the best part of that. And there's a few famous movie stars that are married to blue collar men. Everybody's like, oh my God, is the pendulum turning? I'm like, yeah. The pendulum is turning. You see yourself on the TV, Nolan?
Mm-hmm.
But, I think that show really is embarrassing because, like, the men can't even think of a good answer. Her toes, her dress, her hair. And it's like, brother, if this woman was out at the gas, pumping gas right now, you walk over to the pump. Like, knock it off. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that show is the worst because people really aren't there to date. They're there to kind of be delusional. They're there to kind of do cool one-liners so that they'll be viral on Instagram for the next week.
Yeah.
Like, what's that love show, that guy, The Bachelorette or something? And Married at First Sight. And the dude came on the show. He didn't even want to be married. He was like, my dad cheated all the time. And I saw that growing up. Like, and his dad tried to act like, I didn't have no, what do you mean? And his mom's like, the dad said to the mom, man, we had some good times. And she said, but you weren't good to me. So this whole father's having a whole reminiscent journey of how great their relationship was. And the woman was like, you were horrible to me. So a lot of people are, and this is something I've said and I got in trouble for, and I'll say it again. I was like, when kids of two-parent homes speak, y'all don't want to hear us. When kids of two-parent homes speak, you guys do not want to hear what we have to say, even if it's legit, even if it's like, oh, that's offensive. Do you know what I mean? Like, like there's things you've said. I think you said, like, when my mom got remarried, our life got better. And people like, oh, Todd, you talking crazy, man. You talking. I'm like, he lived that experience. When his mom got remarried, life got better financially. They did better. They lived in a better area. And people can't hear that without having their feelings hurt, right? Everybody wants to live a soft life, but the children of actual soft life start telling you what's up. You don't want to hear that, right? I mean, we could get in trouble because I could be like, listen, like the stuff my dad would tell me about people, like, you looking at the wrong thing. You know what I mean? All the time he say, you looking at the wrong thing. And people can't hear that now, right? Or Shannon Sharp just said this thing where he was like, some of y'all will leave a woman with 80% of what she got because you're looking at somebody else's 10%. That's a real thing. because it doesn't look like you want it to look. You don't. Okay, I can't find nobody. And churches talk about this a lot lately, especially here in Texas. There's a lot of 40 to 50-year-old people in church talking about, I just can't find nobody. Man, baby, you 40 to 50. I'm not gonna say pick the person.
You discarded him. He in the friend zone. That's where he's at.
Well, there's a bunch of men too. Like we have a lot of engineers out here. You know how that is in Austin. And they'll be like, I'll be looking, sir. I remember my friend when he got married to a girl 11 years younger than him. And all the guys are like, how'd you do it? He was like, she's just nice. Like, it's not that she's so hot. It's not she's taller than me. That's not exactly what I want to pick. But he's like, she's just nice. And everybody thought when he would pick a girl, because he's a super fitness guy, he would have some fitness girl. And she's the exact opposite. She's a baker. So you can go wherever you want with that. But a lot of his coworkers, he said he'd be at work and he'd feel bad for him because they would be so depressed and like, I got a house. I'm an engineer. How come these girls don't want me? They're saying I'm too old. And he's like, dude, you're 47 trying to walk down to the college area, picking a 23-year-old. They don't want that. They want you to buy a drink and get out their face. Mm-hmm. He was like, there's probably plenty of 30-somethings that you could have came across in a town full of professionals and be good. But that's the thing, right? That's the thing. It's like you're promoting to people that, hey, just buy a house and have a career and girls are going to fall all over you. That's bad parenting too, right? That's literally telling men falseness. Mm-hmm. Because how many people are telling brothers that right now? Man, if you got money, you make the rules and you could just pick a woman from overseas and bring her. And there's like 2 or 3 credit repair guys that did that exact thing. Pick up a girl from Dominican Republic. She divorced him not even a year later. Taking money. He all on Instagram showing out like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. So, I mean, you can tell me your thoughts on that show, but I'm just like, what in the crackhead stuff?
I've already kind of shared my thoughts. I just want to hear your thoughts.
It's crazy. It's embarrassing, really. I just find it more embarrassing than anything. I think there's a space where Black professional, Black business people are growing, but what you see on TV in the news is so embarrassing right now. It's embarrassing. I don't know what we can do to fix this.
I don't know, but it was nice talking to you. It's been a while.
For sure.
Is doing what he always does whenever I record. But yeah, hit me up at Todd.Capital on Instagram. There are a million different fake pages, so make sure you find the right one.
Sucks.
Yeah.
All right, be good, you guys. Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Nolan.